Welcome, everyone. It's so great to see so many of you here today. I see lots of you are just signing in, which is great to see. We're thrilled to be hosting this webinar for you today with our special guest, the Technical Standards and Safety Authority. The group from TSSA has set aside an hour to talk to you about the ins and outs and the ups and downs of condo elevators. And as a little added bonus, they'll also spend some time talking to you about heating and cooling systems as well as generators. So very excited for that. Before we get to that, I would like to just begin with a short land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land that we are in today is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, as well as the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Dish with One Spoon territory and Treaty 13 of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We respect the histories, language, and cultures of First People, and we remain committed to working towards meaningful reconciliation. Thank you very much for listening. Now, on to some house rules before we begin. We'll start with a presentation from our guests, and at any time, you can use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to ask a question. We have about 20 minutes or so set aside at the end for our guests to answer any questions that you have for them. We'll also be trying to type out answers as we go. However, I can see that there are currently 200 of you here today, so please understand that we may not be able to get to everything. You can also, as always, write to us afterwards and let us know if there's a question that we couldn't get to, and we'll be happy to do that. Just go to tssa.org/contact us or condoauthority.ca/contact us, and I'll share those with you after in the chat as well. And last but not least, before we dive in, we wanted to get to know you a little bit better. So a poll should be popping up on your screen any minute now. If you could just please answer those two questions and tell us a little bit about yourself, that would be great. Just giving it a minute for everybody to vote. I see some questions are coming in already, which is great. Thank you so much. I see that. I'm glad to see that works. Hey, great to see. So lots of condo board directors, unsurprising, as well as a good number of condo managers, and a good amount of people from Eastern Ontario, which is always great to see. Okay. Okay, great. Well, anyway, without further ado, I am going to hand it over to my colleague Phil Simeon, who is the TSSA's policy director, and he'll take you through the slides today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alex, and thank you everyone for joining us. Great to see over 200 of you here and playing a key role in managing your condos and caring about the state of your condos, including our role that we have and engaging with you when it comes to the safety in your buildings. As Alex said, my name is Phil Simeon. I'm the policy director here at TSSA, and I'm here with my team, our compliance support advisors, who work with people in industry to support them with developing their safety and pulling them in a direction that addresses and improves their safety. I think, Alex, you maybe want to put your thing on mute. Thanks. So what we want to cover today, as Alex said at the front end, and hey, we got lots of questions from you. I'm sure our team will be checking the Q&A to see if we can answer any questions as we go along here. We also want to make sure that everyone is aware, while the emphasis is really on elevators in your buildings, you have responsibilities and we have requirements in your buildings as well. So we'll spend a little bit of time on heating and cooling systems. We'll talk a bit about generators, and we'll spend the majority of our time on elevating devices because that is where many of the questions came from. And then, as Alex said, we'll give 20 minutes of time for Q&A if anyone wants to ask questions, or we can answer them through the questions we received in advance or the ones that are being asked in the chat. So what we do, we won't go through everything we do. Our responsibilities as a safety regulator are delegated by the Ontario government, and we administer technical safety. And we have over 17 regulations for the industries we measure compliance with. And there's some visuals here of the different sectors, and of course the elevating devices, amusement rides, ski, boilers and pressure vessels, certificates, skilled trades, contractors, and there's well over 200,000 authorizations, so also known as licenses, that we oversee safety for. So what we really want to focus on today is what's relevant to you in your buildings. We want to make sure that the requirements, generally speaking, are well understood, and the opportunity for you afterwards to have some links and/or people to follow up with any questions you have. What you can expect from your contractors, because you may have contractors that cut across the multiple sectors in the buildings, like the boiler and pressure vessels, like the heating and cooling systems, and of course like the elevators. We want to make sure that when you're making major changes, you're aware of that, that the records and documents that are maintained by you and/or your contractors or your condo managers are understood. And again, at the end, we want to make sure there's an opportunity for you to have quick reference to the information we've communicated here. So we have three people here who you're going to be hearing from very shortly. We have Tenley Rodriguez. He's our compliance support advisor, and he's been in the industry for over 30 years as a mechanic and as an inspector, and now as an advisor. We have Sarah Bites, who works in our boiler pressure vessel and operating engineer sector. And she has been with us for a year and a half, and she has also worked on the private side of the sector. And Rob Northmore, our fuel safety advisor, who similarly has also worked in the private sector and as an inspector and now as an advisor. And these three experts here bring a lot of knowledge and compassion and understanding. And I think having the experience through the private sector and with TSSA, builds that compassion and understanding of where people are at. Because one thing we recognize as a regulator is that there's a lot that everyone has to comply with, not just with TSSA, but well beyond TSSA. And that's something we make sure that we're aware of, and especially in our engagement with yourselves. Before I turn it over to Sarah, who will be speaking first, we're doing our best to answer all the questions in the chat and at the end of the session. I think it's really important that when it comes to elevators, which we know you're very excited to hear about, there's a few things that we don't have the authority, or it's not in the regulation for us to resolve or to address. And that comes with elevators being out of service and the time it takes to get parts and how long it takes to fix them. We don't play a role in that. We play a role in making sure that the elevator is safe when it's being put back into service and that it's operating safely. Another one common question we get is the contractual relationship that you have with your elevating device contractors. We don't have any regulatory authority when it comes to your relationship there and how that works exactly. However, Tenley will be speaking a little bit to what to expect from your contractors. And then another question we often get is, the number of contractors available and the number of mechanics available, and the concerns around people seeing or believing there's a shortage. That's something we don't have a role in, is the supply. That's done more through the colleges and the union. So just wanted to put that out there before we dive in. And as you think about your questions, we still have lots of other questions we're here and ready to answer. So on that note, I'll turn it over to you, Sarah.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, so in your buildings, I'm going to talk about centralized heating and cooling systems. So in TSSA land, we call those BPV, OE, boilers, pressure vessels, and operating engineers. So most condominiums have centralized systems in the GTA. So that means here I have some pictures of what your units might look like, where you get the actual heating and cooling into the individual units. But behind all that, behind you have mechanical rooms, and maybe even on the roof, you have typically a boiler and a chiller. And both of those items and the piping that connects the central system is regulated by the TSSA. So here's just some examples. I don't know how often you guys get into your mechanical rooms, but this is just some examples of what boilers and pressure vessels look like. So they go by many different names, boilers, domestic hot water heaters, tanks, heat exchangers, but in code land, those are all referring to boilers and pressure vessels. So, in order to operate a boiler pressure vessel in Ontario, you have to have a license, very similar to an elevator license that you see posted in elevators. The only thing is you don't see these ones because they are usually posted in the mechanical room. And here I have a picture from a condo I was recently out doing some compliance support with, and they had it nicely hanging here. So, as the condo board, you are the owner and you are responsible to make sure that you have all these authorizations for the devices that are regulated and that they do not expire. Here are some pictures from the field, some creative condo owners, how they like to hang them up. There's lots of ways. You can also keep them in a book in your mechanical room, but when an inspector comes, that's what they'll be looking for. So boilers, depending on the boiler, it'll be inspected and you'll renew this certificate every 1 to 2 years. And for pressure vessels, typically it's every 3 years. There are other types of pressure vessels, come in the form of chillers, compressors, heat pumps, piping, evaporator, condensers. So these are all parts of the pressure boundary or the pressurized system that are also regulated. So often you'll find chillers on your roof. This is gas detection that you'll find outside of a chiller room is that it's not odorized, so it's really important to maintain the controls and the alarms for everyone's safety. So most condominiums, especially in the GTA, actually you have a sufficient number of boilers and chillers that you actually are an unattended plant. And so very similar to an elevator, you have to have designated operators, you have to have automatic safety controls, water treatment. I guess you don't have water treatment in an elevator, detectors, monitoring of secondary coolants, procedures. The safety relief valves, these are these. So they have to be replaced every 5 years, and there's annual tests and every test, because this is our last line of defense, and you want to make sure that it works when there is an emergency. It is your last line of defense. So these plants, you have to make sure you record everything, and then if you have enough to qualify to be a plant, you are then inspected by TSSA inspector every 9, 18, or 36 months, depending on your risk score. So this is what a plant registration looks like. And this you'll see hanging in your mechanical room, and it'll just talk about basically how we added it up. So what to expect from your contractors is you want everyone who does work on your pressurized system, your heating, cooling systems, to have what we call a certificate of authorization from the TSSA, like a license. And you can look up on our website, I have a little screenshot here. You can look up any of the contractors. A lot of times to make life easy for owners, you will give third-party consent to your contractors or even your facility managers to act on your behalf and use our portal to do things like get authorizations and apply for inspections and stuff. So there's a lot of parts. I'm not going to go into detail about the piping. Basically, if it's installed, you use the right parts and it's installed correctly and we've inspected it, and your heating and cooling systems are going to last for a long time. When they aren't, they don't last so long, and there can be safety implications there as well. And that is why there's all these things. But the main thing to expect from your contractors is communication. You, as the owner, you need to know when there are incidents. So that means any leak, failure in the pressure boundary, release of refrigerant orders that you get from your inspections, any safety issues, and non-compliance, because a lot of things come down to budgetary things that would be in your purview. So just getting an update and making sure you know what you need and that they are providing you with the documents, and they're able to show the reports and everything to you. So that's it for me. I'll hand it over to Rob to talk about generators, fuel storage.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Okay, so generators. So there's some different varieties you're going to see around your condos. Some of them are inside. A lot of times they have a room off of the parking garages, that sort of thing. And a lot more now are becoming like the Generac picture there, where they're outside packaged tight skin units. So you're going to see those, and they're most commonly used to power your elevators, if you have fire pumps in your building, lighting and that to get people out. Now, the diesel generators installation must be completed by a licensed oil burner technician. And that's typically what we call a commercial ticket, which is the OBT1, Oil Burner Technician 1, due to the size of the units. If they are natural gas, then that can be completed by typically a G1, sometimes a G2 on smaller stuff if it's not over what we call 400,000 BTUs. So this work must be inspected by the distributor initially, whether that's your fuel company or Enbridge, initially when they're installed, and then every 10 years thereafter. And there's more details with a QR code in the appendix. So typical fuel storage tanks, you're going to see a lot of condos will have a tank in the same room or a different room, but inside the building, such as the top tank there, which is a typical 200-gallon tank for their fuel usage. Now, you can also have an above-ground tank outside. Okay, thank you, Sarah. As you can see in the bottom. Now, there are some places that'll have underground. Any underground work must be done by what we call a petroleum mechanic, specifically trained PM2 in installing and servicing underground tanks. So the PM2 may work in conjunction with the oil burner technician in order to install the entire system. So the petroleum mechanic can do the tank, they can do piping up to the generator, but they cannot do the final connections. Or the oil burner technician can do piping and final connection, but he can't do the underground equipment. So all underground tank designs and installations must be done through the TSSA and the tank registered. So it's a process that starts with the TSSA before any digging is done. So, and again, there's more details in the appendix. Next, Sarah. So now, as far as in the actual condo buildings that go, there's various varieties. You can have one big central heating systems, or a lot of condos have individuals in each condo. So the typical thing we found, I just put a couple things in here for typical issues that we will find. So at the bottom, you'll see the venting in white. That came to be as of July 2006. We call it S636 gas vent. It's basically PVC piping that's been tested to temperature. Before that, you could use what you'll see in black there, ABS piping. So any furnaces that are being replaced or water heaters being replaced in the condos must have the 636 white piping for the vent. The fresh air could be left, but the vent must be white. Or, as you can see, I put a copy of a variance request. You can get a variance from the TSSA to leave the black ABS piping in, but there are some conditions that must be met. So the other big issue that we see in condo buildings is dryer fires. Okay, a lot of times the venting is not conforming with the current codes, whether it be with common venting. And you can see a picture of the aluminum, almost like aluminum foil with the little metal rib around it. You can't use that stuff. You have to have um, either rigid piping, as you'll see in the center picture at the bottom, or to the right there, you'll see it's a aluminum flex, but it's a little it's heavier gauge. It's not like the foil on the left. And the biggest thing that you guys need to make sure that your condo managers are doing is having a regular maintenance program to clean out the dryer filters and the piping, and have it vacuumed out on a regular basis. So the takeaways on this are make sure when work is being done that the appropriate certificate holder is doing it, and that's as simple as asking the company that you want to hire. You can ask them to see the licenses or know that they have the licenses. You can verify compliance with them that are doing installations to make sure that they are complying with the regulations in the code, and ensuring that all permits and inspections are completed, and developing a maintenance program to address issues before they become incidents. And next is Tenley on elevators.
Thank you, Rob. And good afternoon to all of you taking the time to attend this session. Elevators are probably one of the most used safety systems in any residential building. And today we try to provide some clarity with regards to your responsibilities, what compliance means, and how you can reduce risk while keeping your residents safe and your operations running smoothly. So as we get started, I would like to go over a couple of devices that sometimes get neglected in a condominium building. So you are all used to the regular passenger elevators in a condominium building. Besides regular passenger elevators, there are in some bigger condominium buildings, facilities, there are freight platform lifts which serve 2 or 3 floors and usually located behind on the rear side of the building to transport garbage to the compost or recycling room. Then you have the lift for persons with physical disabilities. And these are usually small lifts that serve a limited area that's in amenities, and its access is restricted to persons with disabilities. It's very important that access is only allowed to people who have some sort of an access key or a swipe card to use that lift. Additionally, of late, we have seen a rise in the number of parking garage lifts, which are found in the underground parking area of condominium buildings in order to increase the parking capacity of your parking area. So all these devices are regulated under the TSSA regulations, and they do need a license. So that's where we're talking about an unauthorized device. Every device that I mentioned about does need a license, and the relevant information in the license should be updated with regards to the contact information or address or any changes that may occur with the authorization. Additionally, we have reporting outages, which is a requirement since July 22. That is, it comes under the elevator availability requirement. And the last 3 years, the code has introduced something called the monthly fire recall test, which needs to be conducted as it implies every month on the passenger elevators in your condominiums. And you need to have a record of the tests that are conducted and signed off available at site. So these tests can be done by building personnel or on site or your elevator contractor or consultant, as long as you know what needs to be tested and it is documented and available at site. And the last one is regarding alterations that we'll talk about a little further. Yeah, we spoke to you about authorizations and the need to have a license for every device that's functional, and also the need to update the information about the license. So the good thing is now TSSA does have a portal where you can conduct most of your business through the TSSA portal to renew your license, pay your invoices, and include any changes that may occur, like regarding contact or telephone number or email address of the person in charge of the building. This is a picture of a license. Most of you must have seen this. So the three important parts of the license constitute: one is the location at which the license the device is installed. Two is the installation number. The installation number is a unique identification number which is used to reference all correspondence or all communication regarding a particular elevator. So it's unique to an elevator. You cannot interchange the installation number. Whenever you're reporting anything about an elevator, you have to use that installation number to report it. And of course, you have the expiry date of the license that tells you when to get ready to renew your license. Contractor and owner responsibilities. I guess this is a very hot topic, and it's very important that you factor in all the necessity requirements that you want your contractor to comply with. Now, we talk about license. It is the owner's responsibility to renew the license through the TSA portal. Same with change of information. It's the owner's responsibility. They can conduct that change of information through the portal. Incident reporting is a big part of keeping Ontario safe. And so we encourage owners. It is the duty of owners and contractors to report in every incident that occurs. Alterations. Alterations should only be conducted by an authorized contractor. So owners should only use authorized contractors. And contractors, when they do conduct alterations, should remember that they have to provide a submission to TSSA. Engineering will review the submission and may conduct an inspection, as the case may be. Maintenance, always use a registered contractor. And the registered contractor has duties to perform. It's very important when you engage a contractor and you're also entering into a contract with your contractor, make sure that take time to understand what are the contractor's obligations under the regulation and what you expect as an owner operator from your contractor. So the sooner you clarify those requirements, the better off and smoother things are going to function for you and your contractor as well. The contractor's responsibility is to have a logbook located in the machine room. The logbook is not the property of the contractor. It belongs to the device. So it should stay for the life. Ideally, it should stay for the life of the device. The regulation says it's minimum, it should be kept for 6 years. I would recommend that the logbook stay with the device for as long as possible because it gives you history of data of the device. The logbook consists of mainly 5 parts. One is the recording of the scheduled maintenance tasks that are conducted usually on a monthly basis or every 3 months. The next is the category 1, as the name implies, is annual test. probably about 8 to 10 tests that need to be conducted on every elevator. The test needs to be conducted, and the logbook needs to be updated as well. Then you have the category 3 tests, which only applicable to hydraulic elevators, and they're just one test that needs to be conducted. Additionally, the most important is you have the category 5 test. As the name implies, again, it's a 5-year test, and it's a pretty rigorous test. It's conducted with the full load and under full speed conditions. So ideally, the contractor may have to take your elevator out of service for probably a day or two, because they have to bring weights into the building, load to the capacity of the elevator, and conduct their various tests. And of course, finally, you need to have a record of the logbook needs to contain a record of breakdown calls and parts replaced. Now, as you may know, that an elevator is like basically makes up of a mechanical machine at the top, electromechanical machine at the top. So it generates a lot of noise. So noise within limits, though. So sometimes, because the elevators or machine room is always located at the top of the building, so people living around the top of like closer to the penthouse and closer to the elevator machine room may experience sounds emanating from the machine room, which is pretty normal. And I've seen some office buildings, they might resort to using attenuation pads to absorb the sound so that there's less disturbance from to people in the office. Similarly, like there may be intermittent problems that occur with the elevator. It's like anything else. It's like your automobile or like your health. Intermittent problems are sometimes difficult to troubleshoot. May require the mechanic showing up on site 1 or 2 times to get to the root cause of the problem and really fix it. So besides the breakdown calls, it's important that you have the list of parts that were replaced on the elevator. All that is the responsibility of the contractor. Again, while you as an owner operator delegate work to an elevator contractor, you make sure that the person is a registered contractor, and it is prohibited for anybody else other than a contractor to work on an elevator. Alterations and repairs. I guess this is another hot topic. Now, anytime you have alterations that constitute addition of material inside an elevator, like introducing display panels or flow restriction fobs or cameras that you install inside the elevator, that should be done in coordination with an elevator contractor, because there are various factors that need to be considered while doing those type of alterations, to ensure that they are fixed, secured properly, and they don't fall apart when you have a sudden stop, as well as to make sure they comply with the elevator codes and regulations. So depending on the manufacturer of your elevator, you may want to also upgrade your elevator, right? And the normal lifespan of an elevator is between 25 and 35 years. Usually, your elevator contractor may be able to give you a better life expectancy of all equipment in the elevator. But the most important part is to ensure that any alteration that you're doing with the elevator is done by an elevator contractor, except that if you're doing anything of housekeeping in nature, like replacing a couple of floor tiles with the same, then it's considered housekeeping, and it can be done by your building personnel. If you have to replace the entire floor, then you're actually changing the fire rating of the material and the weight of the cab as well. So that needs to be coordinated with an elevator contractor. Again, I was mentioning to you about the camera. A camera is not mandatory in a camera is not mandatory inside an elevator, but if you choose to install one, it is accepted, but it should be done through a contractor, and a TSSA needs to be made aware of it. Upgrades are a cost-effective way to focus on functionality rather than optics. When you modernize, you will need to meet the current code and requirement in all aspects, including the fire recall. So the present code requirements is that besides your telephone communication inside an elevator, you also need to have a camera for communication purposes. Coming to elevator availability reporting. This has been in force, like I mentioned, from July of 22. It is a requirement for owner-operators to report outage of elevators that have been out of service for more than 48 hours. Of course, you have 30 days after it's put back in operation for you to report that outage. TSSA is this outage can be reported through the TSSA portal, and information is being gathered through the TSSA portal to analyze the various reasons for the elevator being out of service. Next, to talk about incidents. I have given the incident reporting telephone number up there. So it's very important. An incident is some adverse effect to people or property that happens due to sudden movement or conditions that may cause trips and falls or being struck by an elevator door. The most common incident reported at TSA are people being struck by closing elevator doors. It's a combination of our busy lives where we're always focusing on our telephones and walking into elevators or chatting with people, as well as sometimes there may be situations where your door detector is not functioning and you're getting struck by an elevator door. But it's the most common reported incident. The second most common reported incident are people tripping and falling. So these are things that you can look for ahead of time before an incident occurs and get them fixed by a contractor. So it's a key part of keeping Ontario a safe place to work, live, and play. So it is mandatory for all industries regulated by TSA that incidents be reported. And the gathering of information through this reporting serves to help the regulated industry understand the issues at hand and fix them as and when possible. That's what I have. So I can take your questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tenley. So what I'll do is I'll go into the Q&A chat and I'll read out those questions, and then we'll go to the questions we received beforehand. So I'll start off with, we have somebody commenting that they just changed their diesel tanks to double wall. That's good. The next question would be, Rob, for you. What size height of building requires generator backup and testing for at least one elevator?
To be honest on that one, Phil, I am currently trying to find that.
Okay. That's a takeaway question. Good question. Stumping the experts here. We have so glad this will be posted. When do you expect this to be done? I think Alex from CAO said that this recording will be shared, and that will also include the presentation with all the links. Okay, next question. Can we have the reference for the dryer vents being changed from the old venting to the flex tube? Rob?
Yeah, back to me. That's the one where I was getting into the code book to try to find the reference for that. when we pop back online here. So when I get that, I'll post that up. It's in the B149.1 gaseous fuse code book as far as moisture vent duct requirements.
Okay. Okay, Tenley, this is for you. Oops, just kind of moving around here. We are having too many outages. Random floors light up in the elevator affected. Shortly thereafter, we have to close down that elevator and have it serviced. Not convenient as it happens often. So not really a question necessarily, Tenley, more of a comment. And do you have anything here to share?
Yeah, it's very important. That's why it's very important when you enter into a contract with your contractor to stipulate what are your requirements in terms of response times, fixing problems. All these can be worked out earlier in your contract requirements to your contractor, so that you don't end up with problems halfway down the contract, right? So yeah, there are times it's problems that are difficult to fix at the first go, but it should not be drawn out for too long. Like you cannot attend the same call recurring 2 or 3 times in a week. Will not be acceptable as any customer. It's just like your automobile. If you have a problem, you take it. You might get it fixed the first time, but if you realize it's not fixed, you might look at it again and probably take it the second time and get it fixed. So
Okay. Another question, I think this is really relevant. You may have touched on it in your presentation, Tenley. Where can we find the requirements for elevator maintenance being documented? Sorry, where can we find the requirements for elevator documented?
yeah, so I mentioned about the logbook. The logbook is usually kept in the elevator machine room, and the maintenance contractor updates the logbook as and when he performs the maintenance tasks. It's a good practice. I would recommend it as a good practice to record the anniversary dates, especially for your category 1 tests and category 5 tests. So you know well ahead of time when these tests are due, and you can remind your contractor, these tests are coming up due probably in June. So please plan to do this, because it takes a little bit of planning, both of resources and manpower. So, and because they have a lot of contracts, sometimes things fall by the wayside.
That's good. And in case, Tenley, the question was focused more on what are the requirements for elevators. If you can please, Tenley, go in the Q&A on the bottom. And I would recommend we put the link to the compliance standards and any other requirements that are easily referenced in this Q&A question. I think that would also help.
Okay.
Thank you. Sarah, this one's for you. Could you please advise on the requirements for a like-for-like boiler replacement?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Thank you for the question. So every time you take out a boiler or a pressure vessel or anything that's regulated, you have to report it to the TSSA. We do have a form on our website that you have to tell us that you have removed it. And then when you install a new boiler, even if it's like for like, it requires an installation, a TSSA first inspection or an installation inspection. What is allowed without like re-registering maybe is piping like for like when you're doing repairs like that would just require a TSSA inspection if the piping's regulated. But for a boiler and the devices themselves, they have to be reported as removed, and then you have to go through the initial process, like when you put in a new boiler or pressure vessel or chiller, you have to get an installation inspection to make sure everything is installed correctly. So I hope that answered your question.
All right, thank you. It's nice to see some uptake on the boilers and the heating cooling system. So thanks everyone for those questions. Tenley, back to you. Does elevator pad protection need to be fire retardant?
Absolutely. You do anything that goes inside the elevator should be fire rated.
Okay. Is adding mats to an elevator in the winter considered an alteration?
As long as the mats are fire rated, you can install a mat inside, and you're not going to add too much weight to the elevator. There should be, and does not constitute a tripping hazard as well. It's not an alteration.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Are there plans for TSSA to move towards standardized digital record keeping or QR-based access as part of compliance or inspection process? Yeah, that's a fantastic question. That is something that gets discussed, and it's really dependent on that balance between condo owners, contractors, and us as regulators having a seamless way to transfer that information, and also for people to be okay with the upfront costs of it. So I think the answer is it's something that's being looked at in a future state. However, at this time, we're not in a place where ourselves, contractors, or owners are committed. However, as more and more buildings, especially commercial ones, go online with QR-based access, that is something we can pilot and learn from, and then see opportunities to expand that. Tenley, question for you. Is entrapment an incident?
No, as long as there's no injury to the person, it's not an incident. Good question, actually.
Okay. Right. Next question. Okay, sorry, folks. I'm scrolling, and I think there's updated info being added. What's the next one? Can we get the history of reported TSSA incidents for our elevator?
The history can be availed through the Freedom of Information Act. You can make a request to TSSA to find out how many, basically, the reports that were issued against a device.
Okay. Sarah or Rob, what types of records should owners request to verify that proper maintenance has been performed on HVAC systems? And what can an owner do if the corporation refuses to produce those records, especially after a major failure? So I don't think we're in a place to answer the second question, Sarah. I think if you can please take the first one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Records are critical. A lot of times you'll have a maintenance contractor with a HVAC thing to service your boilers, to service your chillers, to do those regular tests that are required, and with your generator. What best practice I've seen is like to keep a book, much like the elevator logbook, with all their records. And I know a lot of things have gone digital, but sometimes it's hard to find. So I would always ask for the documentation, and I would keep it with the device beside it. I know sometimes they like to put their reports in tiny little plastic sleeves and attach them to the device themselves. But I would for sure, that's only part of the record. I would ask for more information is always better. When it comes to compliance, you want to show your due diligence and showing that you know what's going on, you're reviewing the documents and the records, and that they're legible and they're accurate is really important. So I would ask for everything. There are regular tests, leak tests, especially for chillers. You have to test the basically all the fail safes and the safety controls, and they're supposed to be recorded in the plant logbook. So if there's specific questions, happy to dive into that further, because often it depends on which equipment you have. So, and a lot of the requirements adopted by the code are You have to follow what the manufacturer says you have to do. So a good first place is to review those operation manuals.
And if I can be of help, I can actually take the second part of that question because that's more related to CAO stuff. So, Duya, you asked, what can an owner do if the corporation refuses to produce these records, especially after a major failure? So you have several options, including working collaboratively with your condo corporation to understand where they're coming from and why they're unable to produce those records. You can also file a case with the Condominium Authority Tribunal. Records is within the jurisdiction of the CAT, and this would be considered a non-core record, and so you can compel your corporation to provide these records for you through the CAT. Now, you should be prepared that perhaps this record may not exist, and that's a separate issue that cannot be dealt with through the CAT as well.
Thanks, Alex. Tenley, back to you. Who reports outages and incidents to TSSA? How do I keep losing my spot on these questions? So that's the first part of the question, Tenley.
Yeah.
And I've lost my spot, but I think you have covered that. But if you can please cover it again, that would be great. And maybe put links in, that would be helpful.
Okay, I will try to answer that. Yeah, outages should be reported by building owners and property managers, not the contractors and not the mechanics. So it's the responsibility of the owner of the device to report outages. This can be done through the elevator availability portal. Even with incidents, both the owner and the contractor is responsible to report incidents.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is on the outage reporting portal that I shared in the chat, and I think the link will be available in the appendix. The contractor can submit it on behalf of the owner, but as Tenley said, it is the owner's responsibility to report. Okay, if dryer ducts belong to the unit owner, who is responsible for cleaning them?
That would be me. So, dryer ducts. It's always a hot topic here. So, first off, I guess it depends on who owns the equipment is where I would go first. Sorry about that. I would look at who owns the equipment, and that's probably, you have to go back to your agreement with the condo as to who owns what, who's responsible for what. So typically, and I'll just say typically on something where you own your own equipment within the condo, you're probably going to be responsible for that yourself. As far as all equipment goes with that, most every manufacturer writes down that they want their equipment serviced on an annual basis. So that tells you about how often to have things checked. So as far as there was a question on here about how often to clean it, yeah, probably once a year or annually when it's being checked. I'm just going to quickly circle back to an earlier question on venting and materials and that sort of thing. So in the code book that we have right now, which is the 2020 version, it basically states for gas dryers the requirement to have the proper material. So number one, you want to check the manufacturer's instructions. Number two is the certain materials are not approved to be used with gas dryers because they're just not strong enough, like that foil-backed rib stuff. That's where you get into needing aluminum style flexible or rigid piping. So hopefully that'll answer those questions. Can I jump in with one other question that was asked a little bit earlier, Phil?
Yeah, please do. Just read the question again, though.
Oh, the question was size and height requirement before you required a generator for an elevator. I took a look. There's nothing in our codes. I think you'll probably find it's either in the building code or the fire code. That one, I can't tell you which one it'll be, but that's going to be in there. We don't specifically state that. Okay.
Thanks, Rob. Tenley, back to you. Can you please describe the nature of the special test for hydraulic elevators in a couple of sentences? And can you please make it easy for a layman audience like perspective? So in other words, pretend like you're explaining it to me.
Okay, so let me get back to the code and respond to that in detail, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sorry, Tim, I know you're looking stuff up.
Yeah.
Who is responsible for the two-way communications in the elevator to ensure it is meeting all code compliance? Is it the elevator contractor or property owner manager?
Yeah. The bottom line is everything that happens for the elevator is the property owner is responsible. Of course, you do have a contractor to ensure that it is compliant. But ultimately, the responsibility lies because if you don't have a telephone line coming into communication, or if you do not have a proper contract that talks about the communication equipment in the elevator, then your contractor is not going to comply, right? So the bottom line is the owner operator is responsible for everything with the elevator, and that is why they hire a contractor to ensure that they meet all those requirements.
All right, thank you. Sarah, what if we are not getting any reminders by TSSA about boiler chiller C of Is? That's part one. And then the second part is if the C of I, so when we say C of I, that's certificate of inspection, required for every boiler, but were not completed, and the owner wants to rectify the shortfall, are there any fines, implications for requesting TSSA's help to get back on track?
Okay, great question. I've worked with a few condos to help sort out when this type of thing happens. Um, it's hard, our compliance support is all about helping you come into compliance. If you notice that there's something not right or doesn't match up or something that hasn't been done in the past, please reach out to me directly. We'll go over it. I can come on site and help identify what is regulated, what's not. If you want to send pictures, that kind of thing. Um, yeah, if you're not getting reminders, it might be because your contact info needs to be updated on the portal. Sometimes there's old contacts. So again, if you want to shoot me an email and we can check your account and get those updated with our customer management team. So yeah, me, Tenley, Rob, we're here to help you. And if we can't help you, then we will find who at the TSSA is best able to help you. But for sure, we're all about helping. We're not really into enforcement. We try to help first. So
Thanks, Sarah. And when the slides are shared, you'll find everyone's picture here with their contact info, and there's the opportunity to follow up. We're at time here, I think, Alex, and there's many questions still that are fantastic that we're not going to have time to get to. But again, folks, you're welcome to follow up with our experts here at your convenience afterwards.
Thank you so much, Phil and team. We enjoyed having you very much today. It was great to hear about all this really interesting stuff, and it's great to see so much interest from our audience on these really important topics. We hope to have more of these opportunities to join forces and educate the sector like we have done today. So again, really huge thank you to you guys for taking some time, and thank you to everyone who joined us as well and who asked all these great questions. We had, I think, at the peak of almost about 300 folks, so that was really great to see. I hope everyone has a great rest of your afternoon, and I hope you stay dry during this wet, rainy season. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.